Hello, I'm Spencer Eden. It's time we started having a sane conversation in this country about directed energy weapons and who the real enemies of this country are. Yesterday, Senator Susan Collins introduced a bill called the Havana Act. And that's an acronym standing for Helping American Victims Afflicted by Neurological Attacks Act, specifically referring to the diplomats who were extracted from Havana after apparent energy weapon attacks. In 2016, more than 40 U.S. diplomats serving in Cuba said they faced persistent earaches, headaches, and problems with memory, concentration, balance, sleep, etc. Employees at the time reported hearing loud buzzing, piercing squeaks, and mechanical sounding noises. Scientists studying the attacks theorized that weapons emitting harmful sounds or microwaves cause symptoms, although some later argued that strange sounds came from a fast species of cricket found in Cuba. Another group of researchers found that it could be caused by ultrasound signals from everyday devices crossed with signals from the sound monitoring system. Havana Syndrome. Scans show differences in affected diplomats' brains. Nearly 3 years after diplomats associate debilitating symptoms with strange noises, a new study looks at the minds of diplomats for answers. Here's where the real fun begins. Looking at this document from the Department of the Army, United States Army Intelligence and Security Command, released under the Freedom of Information Act, December 13, 2006, documents pertaining to the microwave auditory effect, microwave hearing effect, Frey effect, artificial telepathy and/or device weapon which uses and/or causes such effect, and any covert or undisclosed use of hypnosis. This document is about bioeffects of selected non-lethal weapons, specifically laser and other light phenomenon, radio frequency, directed energy, and aural bioeffects. You're welcome to read this document at any time by simply pausing. I'm going to move on. To be clear, these are CIA, MK Ultra kind of experiments. And of course, they experimented with human beings doing microwave heating. The subjective sensations provided by this buildup of heat are far more unpleasant than those accompanying fever. In hyperthermia, all the effector processes are strained to the utmost, whereas in fever, they are not. It is also possible that microwave hyperthermia, even with only a 1 degree centigrade increase in brain temperature, may disrupt working memory, thus resulting in disorientation, and the human body is normally at 37 degrees centigrade. In prolonged hyperthermia with temperatures over 40 degrees centigrade to 41 degrees centigrade, the brain suffers severe damage that usually leads to death. How do they know? Because they were experimenting on humans, and they know it usually leads to death. How about that? Periods of hyperthermia are accompanied by cerebral edema that damage neurons, etc., etc., etc. And they've been doing this for 40 years. Notice the document says this concept builds on about 40 years of experience with the heating effects of microwaves. Folks, this document was probably released to the Church Committee around 1977. They had already been experimenting with microwaves for 40 years. You get it? But wait, there's more. Let's talk about microwave hearing. Microwave hearing is a phenomenon described by human observers as the sensations of buzzing, ticking, hissing, or knocking sounds that originate within or immediately behind the head. There is no sound propagating through the air like normal sound. This technology in its crudest form could be used to distract individuals. If refined, it could be used to communicate with hostages or hostage takers directly by Morse code or other messages, even possibly by voice communication. Well, ain't that just the craziest thing you ever heard? This phenomenon is tunable in that the characteristic sounds and intensities of those sounds depend on the characteristics of the RF energy as delivered. Because the frequency of the sound heard is dependent on the pulse characteristics of the RF energy, it seems possible that this technology could be developed to the point where words could be transmitted to be heard like the spoken word, except that it could only be heard within a person's head. In one experiment, communication of the words from 1 to 10 using speech-modulated microwave energy was successfully demonstrated. Microphones next to the person experiencing the voice could not pick up the sound. Additional development of this would open up a wide range of possibilities. A few years ago, 60 Minutes interviewed some diplomats who have been affected by directed energy weapons. I love the way they introduced this. Now we've learned that at least 15 American officials in China suffered unexplained brain trauma soon after. The FBI is now investigating whether these Americans were attacked by a mysterious weapon that leaves no trace. I love how they play dumb, don't you? This from former diplomat to China, Catherine Werner. I woke up in the middle of the night. I could feel this sound in my head. It was intense pressure on both my temples. At the same time, I heard this low humming sound, and it was oscillating. And I remember looking around for where this sound was coming from because it was painful. Scott Pelley says, when did you first notice that you weren't feeling well? Catherine Werner, October of 2017, I started to get hives all over my body. Really bad hives. I woke up with headaches every day. I started to feel tired. The simplest things would just make me very, very tired. Scott Pelley, were these symptoms growing worse over time? Catherine, they were, yes. My symptoms would get so bad I would throw up, or I would wake up with nosebleeds. She says even her dogs were throwing up blood. Werner assumed her illness was connected to China's toxic smog. She didn't know it at the time, but her symptoms were the same that American officials in Havana had suffered since 2016. Catherine Werner became so ill her mother traveled from the U.S. to live with her. She spent almost 3 months with me, says Catherine. During that time, she got very ill. She and I shared the same symptoms. Scott says, what sort of symptoms did your mother have? Headaches and ringing in our ears. We also started to have difficulty recalling words. After reporting her experiences, Werner was medically evacuated to the U.S. for treatment. U.S. agencies are investigating, but Mark Lindsay has a theory. Mark says this was a direct standoff against my apartment. Scott, was it a weapon? Mark, of course it was a weapon. Scott, an energy weapon? Mark, absolutely. Scott says, what sort of energy is this we're talking about? Mark Lindsay, I believe it's RF radio frequency energy in the microwave range. Finally, also included in the 60 Minutes interview was Robin and Britta Garfield, among 40 patients enrolled at the University of Pennsylvania study. He was in Shanghai, posted there along with his wife and 2 children. Robin says, I don't know when the sound started. I do know it was for months on end. Britta says, I was sitting next to Robin and something I felt like hit me from the left side. At first it felt like an electric shock, and then it paralyzed me, so I was not able to move or speak. Scott says it hit you so hard you felt like you're in danger in the room? Yes. They said the children suffered blurred vision and loss of balance. Your daughter was literally falling down? Robin says yes. She fell down multiple times that day. So folks, are you understanding by now that directed energy weapons are real? There are real effects, and there are also various ways in which they're used. Now folks, do you think it's possible? Do you think it's beyond the realm of possibility that somebody could be tortured with microwave energy, could be nagged by voices that no one else can hear, to do unspeakable acts against other people, crimes against humanity? Is it beyond the realm of possibility? Really? Who's behind this? I'd like to know, wouldn't you?